Do you struggle to find your perfect foundation match? If so, this video is for you. We're going to talk about how to find your perfect foundation match online or in person, how to swatch foundations so that it matches, how to tell the difference between undertones and foundation, and how to find your perfect coverage and finish. So there are really 4 things that you need to know to find your perfect foundation match: your skin tone, your undertone, your coverage level, and your desired finish. Coverage level and finish are probably the easiest parts of the equation, so I'm going to save those till the end. And we're going to start with skin tone and undertone. Now, I did a massive video on this a few years ago about the ultimate guide on how to find your undertone. So if you are still unsure, go watch that first and then come back here. But just as a quick recap, skin tone refers to the amount of melanin in your skin. And most beauty companies refer to 5 main skin tones: fair, light, medium, tan, and deep. And you can very easily put yourself into one of those 5 categories, and that can help narrow down which of the foundation colors you're going to look at. Undertone is a bit trickier, and that refers to the underlying color of your skin. There are 4 main undertones: cool, neutral, warm, and olive. So hopefully you know what your skin tone and your undertone are. Again, check out that video if you're not sure about your undertone. But then the next question is, how do you know what undertone you're buying in a foundation? Now, thankfully, most companies tell us if their foundation is cool, neutral, or warm. It is harder to find true olive foundations, but some companies are starting to come out with olive toned foundations and actually labeling them as such. Let's train our eyes to see the difference between foundation undertones. Take a look at these 4 undertones. I have all 4 of them here: cool, neutral, warm, and olive, not necessarily in that order. Take a look at them and determine which one do you think is the warm-toned foundation, or the one that has more yellow in it. If you chose this one, you are correct. This is Rare Beauty 170W. It is the most yellow foundation I own, and it's actually a bit too much for my skin. It's very saturated, but it is the most yellow foundation here. Now, which one do you think is the cooler toned foundation? This one is tricky for me. I went to the drugstore and I bought 2 e.l.f. foundations, one that was labeled neutral and one that was labeled cool, just because I am not either of those undertones. If you look at the one that is labeled as cool, which is this first one closest to my wrist, it looks very peachy to me. The actual neutral toned, which is second from the end, looks very pink to me. And now the olive tone foundation might be the trickiest one to identify because it looks quite warm, but it has a hint of green in it, which is what gives it its olive quality. Next, how can you find your foundation shade online when you can't actually be in person swatching these? Let's train our eye to see how different makeup companies show their foundation undertones so that we can compare it to what will match us. Look at the medium to deep swatches from Rare Beauty's foundation line. I actually think they do an incredible job of showing these tones in their true-to-life color, so you can actually trust these swatches. If we look at the undertones of each swatch, we can see some big differences between the shades. So for example, 390C here clearly has some pink undertones, while 380W, which is right next to it, has warm golden undertones. Pro makeup artist Lisa Eldridge, who is my favorite makeup artist ever, does an incredible job of showing you true-to-life swatches on her models. She has 40 shades in her range, and if you want to train your eye to see different undertones, this is a great place to go. Look at Lisa's light to medium models. Which one do you think has a pink or cool undertone? It's model 14, because she clearly has a very rosy hue to her skin. Model 16 has a true olive undertone because you can see that green coming through. Model number 15 is neutral. There's no strong color coming through. And then model 13 has a golden undertone. Speaking of photos, if you're still not sure of what your undertone is, take a photo of yourself in natural light with no makeup on, and then compare it to the models online and see which one of them matches your undertone. Tip number 3 for finding your perfect foundation shade online. use a foundation match program. There are so many of these out there. My personal favorites are foundation.com and Tantalia's Foundation Matrix. And it will walk you through a series of questions about foundations you've used, what you think your undertone is, and it will spit back a bunch of different foundations that it thinks will match you based on what other people have said match them with similar undertones. When I was first starting my foundation finding journey, I used these and they got me quite close. But again, because foundation companies might label their foundations slightly differently, it doesn't always get you to the perfect foundation, but it can get you really close, and then you can look up swatches and see what actually will match you perfectly. You can also scour makeup subreddits on Reddit, and that's actually what I used to really narrow down that I had an olive undertone, because you will get the down low on every single foundation out there. You can ask people to swatch foundations for you, and you can find people who have very similar undertones to you and see what foundations match them. Okay, you've figured out which foundation you think you want to buy, you know your undertone, you know your skin tone. Once you get that foundation, how do you know it actually is the right one for you? You swatch. Ideally, you want to swatch in the parts of your body that are not discolored at all, especially if you are like me and you have a lot of redness to your skin. I have a lot of overtones of red because of acne scarring and just damage from over the years. If you're swatching on your jaw down to your neck, my suggestion is always to take a photo, because I just find it hard seeing here when I'm just looking in person. So I would suggest taking a photo, and what you want is not only something that unifies all of your skin tone, but you want it to just disappear into the skin. So if we're swatching on the jaw and we're only looking at the jaw or the face, it almost looks like this one closest to my mouth is the best. But if you look at it down onto my neck, it is not the right undertone at all. It's way too pink for what I'm trying to match, which is this true undertone on my neck. This next one, which is Revlon, is the right undertone. It's slightly dark, especially for my neck. This next one is LYS Beauty in LN3. This looks a bit more neutral when looking at all of these, but when I bring it down onto my neck, it's the one that actually disappears into my skin. And the last one I've swatched is the Kevyn Aucoin, which, while quite saturated here in this swatch, is the only one that actually matches the green. The way I really truly understood my undertone was putting it here on my chest, because this is the color that is true to my undertone, and it's what I want to match. And that's what I'm doing here in this video. You can see I'm in natural light. The only one that truly matches my skin tone is the Kevyn Aucoin, because it has that olive undertone here on this part of my body. How do you know that you've truly found your perfect foundation shade? Well, once you've swatched it, you want to make sure that you put it over your entire face, and what you're looking for is complete uniformity. You want everything to just be seamless. So I am wearing my perfect foundation shade right now. If I turn to the side, you can see that my jaw is the same color as my neck, which is the same color here. Now, my hands are very red right now, so they're not going to match, but again, if I hold this up, this now matches that as well. So you want your foundation to match all of the exposed skin that you have. You also want to make sure that you check your foundation in multiple different lighting scenarios, but ideally you want to start with natural lighting, because that will be the truest test of if everything looks seamless or not. So go into your car, pull that rear view car mirror down, and see if your face matches everything else. I have found, as someone with an olive undertone, that depending on the lighting, my foundation might look a little more yellow if it's too saturated. So the Rare Beauty foundation that I shared earlier is too yellow and too saturated for me. So if I go into fluorescent light, I look crazy. But in my natural light, it doesn't look that bad. So you want to make sure you're checking in different lighting situations, and say you bought a foundation and you can't return it, maybe just use that foundation when you know you're going to be in a certain lighting situation. You also have to be really aware when you're trying foundations on to let them sit for a little bit to see if they turn a different color. Sometimes this is just the foundation, other times it's because of our skin, and if we're really oily, this can happen quite a bit because as the foundation starts settling on your skin, it mixes with your oils. And for me, that means my foundation will sometimes get darker because I do have oily skin. What you want to next look at is how does the foundation sit on your skin? And part of that has to do with skincare and other factors. But if you just take the foundation by itself, you want your pores to not be emphasized. You want it ideally to just look like skin. So let's get up close and personal here. This is my skin with nothing on it. I've done my skincare, but that was it. Of course, I do have brows, eyes, and some lip liner on, but the skin is as is. Now, if you look here, I hope you can see it, but I do have quite large pores in this part of my face. Again, I have really oily skin. I have some acne scarring and of course some of that redness. I'm going to start with my LYS foundation. So already it's evening out my skin tone, but it's not obliterating my skin underneath. I put a little bit more here, especially, I haven't powdered yet, but we want this without powdering, without anything else, to just look absolutely like skin and to even out everything else on the face. It looks really nice. Those pores are not emphasized. It just looks like beautiful skin. We have a great match. It looks like I am one person. Which foundation should you buy if your skin tone changes throughout the year? Now, the biggest thing to know if you tan in the summer and get much lighter in the winter is that your undertone never changes. If you have a cool undertone, you're going to be cool undertoned forever. Now, the overtone of the skin, remember all of that redness that I was showing you, depending on how you tan, that might affect which foundation you buy, but know that your undertone always remains the same. And most people buy different foundations depending on what time of the year it is. So my suggestion is if you find your perfect foundation, just buy the next shade that matches your undertone that's either lighter or darker depending on which one you need. We've gotten through the hardest part. Hopefully you now have a better idea of which foundation is going to match your undertone. You know how to swatch. And the last two parts of this video are much, much easier to determine. And actually, if you know this part first, it can help you narrow foundations down even quicker. But I think the other part of this video was just much more challenging. So I wanted to spend the time on that first. The next thing you want to decide is what kind of coverage level should you get in a foundation. If you're still unsure about your undertone, try a light or a medium coverage foundation. And these are exactly what they sound like. A light coverage foundation will just even out your skin tone, but it will not cover any redness, scarring, acne, anything like that on the skin. A medium coverage foundation will give you more coverage. You might still have redness or acne scarring or acne poking through, but you don't have as much to cover up. And of course, a full coverage foundation cancels out everything. I used to be a big proponent of full coverage foundations because I did have significant acne growing up. But as I've gotten older, full coverage foundations start to make me look a bit cakey. They can sometimes highlight fine lines as you're getting older. And if you don't get your undertone correct, it can look like a mask. So my personal preference is to start with a light to medium coverage foundation, and then anything that I need to still cover up, whether that be scarring or active acne, I will use something a bit more concentrated and pinpoint conceal where I need it. And the final part of this video, what foundation finish is best for your skin? There are three main types of finishes: dewy, semi-matte, also known as natural, and matte. But basically, it's determined by your skin type at the most basic level. So if you have oily skin and you tend to get really oily throughout the day, you might want to look into a matte foundation. If you want your skin to just look like skin, but better, you might try a more natural finish foundation. And again, most companies list the type of finish in their description. And then if you want a dewy, glowy finish, you likely want to look for a foundation that has radiant or dewy in its name or in its description. And this is best for those with dry skin. But again, even though I have oily skin, I use all three finishes depending on what time of year it is and what look I'm going for. But again, that's personal preference and whatever works for you and your skin. I hope this video gave you the confidence to find a foundation that is absolutely perfect for you. If you liked it, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment down below. Let me know that it was helpful. That means a lot to me. I have more videos in this series coming. The next one is actually going to be all about cream blush. I have bought so many cream blushes. I've been experimenting behind the scenes, and we're going to talk all about the best ones that are on the market, as well as how to apply cream blush. And if there are videos that you want to see, if there are questions about makeup application that you have, leave them in the comments too, because I'd love to create more videos that are helpful to you in your makeup journey. So I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you in my next video.